Right, hi everybody, we're going to talk about fitness testing preparation. So big day, a couple of weeks before the start of the season, getting ready for fitness testing. What do we do? How do we feel? How do we prepare? Do we prepare physically, mentally? I think the themes that we've covered already in this program will actually prepare you for testing. If you do these things right, it's not about thinking, oh my goodness, I'm being tested next week, I'm going to go in a big panic before testing day, because that's not going to work. It's about preparation. So thinking about what we've spoken about in the previous topics. If you do those well, 3, 4, 5, 6, ideally 5, 6 weeks prior to testing, it's very likely that you'll be very capable and do well with your testing. And the aerobic test that we're using at the RFU at the moment is the Bronco test. We're governed by World Rugby, and we'll always mimic and mirror what World Rugby directs from above, so that those of us that are developing and getting called into World Rugby kind of teams to travel and perform at the highest level around the world will have done those levels with the RFU as well. So that's our philosophy. We want to be the best physically and technically, and so by covering those, that's really important. Being fit to perform, we've touched on through everything that we've spoken about, all the components of fitness, and the testing really allows us to measure where we are. So it creates a baseline. So if it's your first test or your 5th test or your 10th test through the Bronco, for example, let's use that as an example. We know what our baseline was, and then we can use that as a marker to try and inspire ourselves, motivate ourselves to work a bit harder and achieve the levels that we've set through the RFU, achieve the levels that are set for World Rugby, and have those ambitions as a match official to try and achieve those levels. The key thing for me when you're in the community game is that fitness testing has to be reliable, it has to be valid, repeatable and objective. So if you've got the markings wrong and then they're going to test again in 6 weeks time and the markings are slightly different, that's not valid, it's not reliable, it's not objective, and it's just not going to work. We have to be very, very pedantic and disciplined with how we run our tests. Okay, so really, really important. So once we've created a valid, reliable, repeatable and objective environment, so measured out everything effectively, then we're going to have to prepare mentally for the testing. So we need to think about how we feel about it. Are we prepared mentally? Are we ready to go? Is this going to reflect where I am? It has to be accurate and ideally reflect where you are. You know, I know sometimes people don't perform to the best of their ability, but if you can get your head around it and prepare optimally, that means nutrition, sleep, hydration, as well as the physical preparation. So having your teammates with you to cheer you on is going to push you a little bit higher, and just making sure that you're ready, you prepared well. It's not a surprise. I don't like it particularly personally when coaches surprise athletes with a test. I just think it's not going to, you know, create the best outcome for the athlete, and we want to know where people are. It can test resilience, of course, but actually physically it's not going to perhaps be the best way that people will perform. So the idea is that I will get a reflection of how you guys are physically at that moment in time, and then we use that as an idea to push on if needed and go again with some improvement. How do you guys feel about fitness testing?
I don't actually mind it, because I like to see where I am, you know, and it's like one of those times of season where if you are lacking a bit of motivation, or you haven't perhaps been sticking the hours in training, that when you get that email from Al that says, all right guys, we're fitness tested in 3 or 4 weeks, you're like, right, got to get to it now. And so it gives me a bit of a boost. It gives me a real boost into wanting to get ready for it. You know, as you know, Al, I'm really competitive, and I enjoy challenging myself against the best guys in those fitness tests. So yeah, I think in terms of my preparation for it, you mentioned sort of 6 weeks, probably a little bit less for me. I probably really start thinking about it about a month out, and it's really, really important to highlight that most of the preparation for a fitness test is in stuff we've already discussed, just in that high intensity interval training, in your strength, in your body protection, making sure you're ready to really test yourself to as fast as you can go. The only additional things I would kind of do in the build up to a fitness test is kind of focus on the specific distance. So as we know, a Bronco is 1.2 kilometers. So part of my training in the build up to a Bronco would be, I will run 1.2K as fast as I possibly can. And that gives me a bar, and that starts me, you know, right, this is how fast I can run it in a straight line. And then I'll start to add in some turns. And I think a big part of the fitness test is the turn and how well you can turn and bounce off that turn. So I'll practice running 12 shuttles on a rugby pitch and really bouncing and trying to get off that turn well. Because I think, you know, it seems like nothing, 1.2 kilometers, but by the time you've done all those turns, it really saps the energy out of you. So I think there's a lot to be said for practicing that. And then just in the week build up, I'll just make sure I eat, sleep well, and just get well rested for it. Because, you know, I don't think you realize just how much that takes out of you when you're giving it your absolute all. So yeah, it's really, really worthwhile being well rested and well fueled, certainly in the few days building up to it, if you can.
I don't love them as much as he does. I personally have a psychological battle. I can do as much training as I want. I can feel great. I can do whatever. And as soon as somebody puts that word test on it, all of a sudden it's that, oh God, am I fit enough? Or you have those little battles and those little demons in your head. So for me, the biggest bit is the psychological element of it, because I know I've done all the work. I know I've done all the prep. I've done all that. And for me, I tend to go and do some practices of the tests in advance and not worry about the score, and just get used to psychologically doing that test. And if I get a good score, great. If I don't worry about it. But then when it comes to that test element of it, I've been through that routine before. I know exactly what it's going to feel like. And picking someone to run with, not necessarily the person that you want to keep pace with, but picking someone that you know will give you that little bit of motivation of, I cannot let them beat me, or I know what time they run. If I start to struggle, I know I need to be close to that person, because internal pacing can be one of the hardest things going. But yeah, I know I've done all the work before, but for me, it's a big psychological battle.
Yeah, no, I really agree with everything the guys have said. To be honest, I'm with Nikki. I don't enjoy it when those emails come out, because I think it's like any other test or exam you do. We don't like being put under that sort of pressure, even when you know you have prepared for it. So I completely agree with Nikki. I go out and I will run a few, and I found that has, you know, helped settle me a bit beforehand. When you know what's coming up, it's not, oh God, it's this big scary thing. It's I ran one of these last week, so at least I know, you know what to expect when it comes out. You've not got that fear. I think definitely with, I know we're doing the Bronco, but I know some people might still do the yo-yo or whatever. I think the turning as well is a really key thing to practice, and just getting in that, because if you lose half a second on each turn, the amount of turns you're doing, that suddenly really adds up. So I think, yeah, just, and at the end of the day, you know, particularly in the community game where, you know, yes, you've got to meet your threshold, but it's you're competing against. If you can be a couple of seconds quicker than your last score, or if you can get one more level, you know, you've made some progress. That's what you're doing. I think particularly, say, in the community game, remembering who you're competing against and who you're doing it for is one of the biggest things, to not over stress or compare yourself to somebody who might be in a completely different situation to you in terms of training. So I think that's a big part of the psychological side of it for me.
Just from my point of view, is just run your own race. I know Adam tests better than I do, so there's no point me racing him, because I'll just watch him disappear straight away. So for me, I know what is a strong performance for me. So therefore, as long as I'm improving, as long as I'm hitting the expected threshold, and not only hitting it, but also going above and beyond, so that it's still a strong performance, then I'm happy. And then hopefully one day I'll be able to keep up with Adam at some point. But also for me, just like from that stress point of view, I'm the same as Nikki and Katherine. I hate it. I'm like with any tests, it's the same for me. So from my point of view, I just got to trust the process and trust the training that I've done, and you know, it hasn't let me down yet. Touch wood.
Guys, thank you. I think to be so honest about that kind of mental stress, that psychological component of testing, it's really important for everyone to recognise. It's not just, you know, an easy peasy thing that you choose to do. It is for some people, and they love it and they drive upon it, and it's that adrenaline and that competitiveness. You know, you're all really competitive, but being analysed, being put under the magnifying glass a little bit, but trusting what you've done, I think is a really great point, Woody. I think knowing that you've put the work in. I always use the premise of, if you look in the mirror and know that you've given it everything, you know, as long as you can do that and you know that you've prepared. You know, one of my bugbears is when people have got notice and then they get injured in a bronco test. It's like, no one should ever get injured in a bronco test, because you should prepare and you should have done the preparation that we've spoken about, the conditioning, the running, the speed work, the SAQ, the strength work, all of those components of fitness, mobility, recovery, sleep, healthy eating, hydration. It sounds like a lot of stuff, but it's very, very simple with planning and knowledge that hopefully we're giving everybody to put it together to make that jigsaw work. And if people are prepared, then knowing that you can physically cope, then the next challenge is the mental preparation, and having your mates around you, your teammates, your colleagues to help. Come on, you can do this. And the S&C coach, whoever's assessing you, you can do this, guys. And it helps pull everybody together. You know, I get a real buzz at the end of it when everyone's kind of giving each other a high five and they've achieved something. And then you go away and you feel proud for that baseline, that movement, that increased score, or whatever it might be, helping someone, shouting at them to push hard. They're really important in that team framework, the sport. It's what sport is all about, isn't it? It's about being together and helping each other succeed. And I think for all of testing's kind of bad rep, it actually serves a purpose to pull each other together as a team and help each other achieve their goals. And then you kind of walk out of that session knowing that you've worked hard the weeks prior to it, achieved hopefully your targets, to then be prepared. You know, mentally and physically, you can get thrown anything in a game and you're ready. And I think that cohesion that comes from that, I get a buzz out of that, administering it, when I see, you know, people finish it and give it their all. It's really what sport and high performance sport, and not only high performance sport, but any community level, rugby, any sport at any level, giving it the best that you can give, which is what we've all said in these sessions. Giving it your best, whether whatever that is, doesn't matter, but give it your best. I think that's a great way to kind of reflect on your outcome. But you know, we're in it together, and you know, there's your teammates doing it as well, your colleagues doing it as well, and recognizing the challenges of that and pulling each other through is really, really positive, I think. So really great honesty with that, you know, great stuff. One other thing with testing is, obviously, if you've got a heart rate monitor, wear it, get that max heart rate data from that test, so that then we can again go back to our high intensity heart rate zone session and know that we can place the right heart rate in to give us our heart rate zones, and it all cycles through to give us the right information to make us improve.